Imagine waking up to police officers pounding on your door. Not because of noise, crimes, or parties, but because your HOA president believes your quiet remote job is destroying the community. That ridiculous accusation was the beginning of my personal suburban nightmare. My name is Sam, and like millions of people since the pandemic, I work from home. Graphic design is quiet, solitary, and harmless. I usually spend hours sketching logos, adjusting colors, sipping coffee, and listening to soft music, barely making enough sound to bother the dust on my shelves. But Karen, our HOA president, has never been satisfied unless she's policing something. She walks the neighborhood, daily like she's conducting inspections. For national security, she measures grass, times parking, and photographs trash bins like evidence in a federal investigation. Her problem started when she saw my second computer monitor through my front window. She immediately convinced herself I was secretly running an illegal business empire from my living room. Instead of asking like a normal human being, she stormed over, rang my doorbell repeatedly, and demanded documentation. Business license, tax forms, invoices, anything she could weaponize. When I calmly explained that I simply worked remotely for companies online, she glared as if I'd confessed to running an underground casino. She warned she'd report me to the HOA and the authorities if I didn't shut down operations immediately. Her dramatic pause suggested she fully expected fear, tears, or desperate apologies. Instead, I laughed, thanked her for her concern, and closed my door. Apparently, that was the ultimate act of rebellion. Within hours, she had emailed the entire HOA board, claiming I was destroying property values, operating a dangerous commercial enterprise, and turning our peaceful neighborhood into a corporate slum. Then came the police. 2 officers showed up expecting machinery, loud customers, or trucks unloading inventory. Instead, they found me in pajamas, quietly adjusting colors on a logo, while jazz played softly in the background. After looking around, they apologized, rolled their eyes, and assured me I wasn't doing anything illegal. Karen stood on her porch watching, furious that her plan failed. But that moment changed everything. Because now I wasn't just annoyed, I was motivated. If she wanted a battle, she had unknowingly chosen the wrong opponent. I wasn't going to let her continue terrorizing everyone with fabricated accusations and imaginary violations. I just needed proof, patience, and the right opportunity, and Karen was about to hand it to me. She just didn't know it yet. And the neighborhood was finally ready to stand up together against. After the police visit failed to deliver the humiliation Karen wanted, she doubled down. The next morning, I woke up to a bright yellow HOA violation notice taped to my door, accusing me of running a disruptive commercial business. The wording sounded official, but the signature at the bottom, Karen's, gave it away. The rest of the board hadn't signed anything. That's when I realized something important. Karen wasn't following the rules. She was inventing them. Instead of reacting emotionally, I spent the day gathering information. I reread the HOA bylaws, highlighted sections about home offices, and even called the city zoning department. Turns out working remotely was perfectly legal. The HOA could only intervene if there were customers, noise, signage, or significant traffic, which I clearly didn't have. Meanwhile, neighbors started sharing their Karen horror stories. One person was fined because their garden gnome was too whimsical. Another nearly lost a permit because Karen falsely complained about construction hours. Someone else admitted she once demanded he repaint his fence simply because she didn't like the shade of beige. She wasn't protecting the neighborhood. She was controlling it. That's when Brian, a quiet neighbor from 2 houses down, approached me with something valuable. He had copies of emails sent by Karen without board approval, issuing fines, threats, and warnings on HOA letterhead. He'd kept them just in case someone ever challenged her authority. I wasn't the first target, just the first willing to fight back. I compiled everything into a folder, recorded dates, times, screenshots, and statements. The case was building itself. All I needed was timing. And then fate stepped in. While jogging one evening, I noticed Karen hosting what appeared to be a party planning business. In her backyard, tables, catering samples, business brochures, and potential clients. Loud conversations echoed across the neighborhood. She was clearly operating a commercial enterprise from her home. The very thing she accused me of doing. I took photos and videos, purely for documentation, making sure everything was time-stamped. Neighbors confirmed it wasn't a one-time event. Apparently, she hosted these meetings weekly. The irony was delicious. With evidence in hand, I requested an official HOA meeting, open to all residents. Karen agreed, likely assuming she'd use it to publicly shame me. She told neighbors she was finally eliminating criminal activity. Her ego couldn't resist an audience. But the moment she stepped into that room, gavel in hand, self-righteous grin plastered across her face. She had no idea the neighborhood wasn't showing up to support her. They were showing up to watch the queen finally lose her crown. The meeting room was packed, standing room only. Folding chairs scraped the floor. Whispers rippled through the crowd, and Karen sat at the head table like a queen awaiting loyal applause. She tapped her gavel dramatically, smiling as if victory were guaranteed. She had no idea the show wasn't hers anymore. As you all know, she began, projecting her voice, we're here to address Sam's unauthorized business activities. Several neighbors shifted uncomfortably. They knew the truth. Karen didn't notice or didn't care. She thrived on authority, not accuracy. She gestured toward me, expecting shame, maybe fear. Instead, I stood calmly, holding a neatly organized folder. Thanks, Karen, I said, keeping my tone polite. Before we begin, I'd like to clarify something. I'm not running a commercial business. I simply work remotely, which is fully legal according to HOA bylaws and city zoning. But that's actually not what tonight is about. That sentence changed the room. Heads lifted. Karen blinked. I placed printed copies on the table in front of each board member. Emails. Karen sent without approval. Fabricated citations, fake fines, and threatening messages written on HOA letterhead. Gasps spread like wildfire. Someone whispered, I knew it. Another muttered, she did that to me too. Karen's face tightened. This is taken out of context, she snapped, voice cracking. I was acting in the community's best interest. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Then Brian stood. Karen fined me for having patio lights. She claimed they were a safety hazard. His voice shook, not with fear, but finally with freedom. I paid because I was scared she'd retaliate. More neighbors followed, sharing stories of intimidation. Unauthorized fines, threats, harassment. Each testimony chipped away at her authority. Even board members began avoiding eye contact with her. Finally, I presented the final piece, the photos and video of Karen hosting her backyard party planning. Consultations. Chairs shifted. Eyebrows lifted, jaws dropped. She had been accusing others of violating the exact rules she was breaking. Karen slammed her palm on the table. That is completely different, she barked. But nobody believed her anymore. The room wasn't hers. It belonged to the people she'd controlled for years. The board president cleared his throat. Karen, until we complete a formal investigation, you're temporarily suspended from your position. Applause erupted. Not wild, but relieved. Like a neighborhood finally exhaling after years of holding its breath. Karen stood frozen, stunned, betrayed by the power she assumed would protect her forever. As she stormed out, the silence she left behind felt louder than any speech she'd ever delivered. But the fallout was only beginning. Karen vanished after the meeting, and for the first time since moving into the neighborhood, the air felt light. People actually smiled during morning walks, waved without hesitation, and chatted like normal human beings instead of frightened tenants. It was strange realizing how much emotional real estate one person had occupied. But the quiet didn't mean Karen accepted defeat. It meant she was regrouping. The HOA board spent the next week reviewing documents, interviewing residents, and digging through years of archived complaints. What they found painted a very different picture than the one Karen had proudly displayed for years. Unauthorized fines, forged signatures, intimidation tactics, personal reimbursements labeled as community improvement, and threats disguised as policy enforcement. It wasn't leadership, it was dictatorship dressed in business casual. When the board finally confronted her, Karen refused to cooperate, insisting she was the victim of neighborhood sabotage. But evidence doesn't care about ego. The board's attorney notified her employer, and that's when everything unraveled. Karen had been spending company hours writing HOA violation letters, organizing paid backyard events, and directing neighborhood surveillance like an unpaid security contractor. She was terminated within 48 hours. The same neighbors she once threatened watched silently as she loaded bankers' boxes into her SUV, shoulders tense, jaw locked, sunglasses hiding rage she couldn't control. No one clapped, gloated, or cheered. The victory was quiet, almost poetic. A week later, the HOA voted unanimously to remove her from all positions and require repayment for misused funds. For the first time, homeowners felt represented instead of monitored. I didn't celebrate loudly, though part of me wanted to. Instead, I opened my windows, brewed coffee, and worked in peaceful silence. The very thing Karen once tried to criminalize. Neighbors stopped by just to say hi, not to complain or whisper, but simply to exist without fear. We'd become a community, not prisoners of a homeowners association monarchy. And the funniest part? My quiet remote job never bothered anyone until Karen convinced herself it did. In the end, her downfall wasn't caused by noise, computers, or work-from-home culture. It was caused by the silence she refused to respect. Peace doesn't require control, intimidation, or authority. It only needs room to exist. And finally, it does. Now, when police drive through, it's just routine, not a weapon. When neighbors meet, they share recipes, not complaints. And when I sit at my desk to work, I feel grateful, not watched. Some people think power comes from titles, gavels, or bylaws. But real power is community, the kind that protects instead of punishes. Karen never understood that, and maybe she never will. But the rest of us finally do. We learned that peace isn't quiet. It's chosen, defended, and shared. And now peace finally belongs to us all. If you enjoyed this crazy HOA story, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and comment below with what you would do if Karen showed up at your door.